Welcome to the Daniels Mentorships and ALD's Student Experiences panel. This is the first part of an upper year panel series that these two clubs are hosting. So keep a lookout for ALD's upcoming student streams panel that should be happening in the coming weeks. So my name is Noor El-Sihel and I am the mentorship coordinator.
Hi, my name is Ikjat Garwa and I will be hosting this event. And Samuel, our marketing executive, Lean and Dara over there. So if you guys could just, at the end, give a big round of applause to them as well. And this event is brought to you by Mentorship and ALD, and we will be having a 5-minute break after our second segment.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to direct your attention to the previous mentorship coordinators who have joined us today. They're at the back. You can see them. So feel free to talk to them about mentorship, the master's studies, anything of the sort. And we'll get started. So a quick disclaimer before we begin. While obvious, we would like to take a moment and remind everyone that the opinions and views shared on this panel are subjective and reflect the personal experience of our speakers. Given their accomplishments, we have invited them to share this with a greater audience, but do keep in mind that there is no one way or right way of doing something. The goal of this event is to expose students to different stories and experiences in an attempt to share knowledge as well as foster growth and community within the Daniels community. Though tonight's presentations, we hope invited students leave with a better understanding of the opportunities available here at UFT and with renewed goals.
So for our first segment on Daniel's experience, we have invited Mukhtar Chavez, Brian Lee, Aya Barkarari, and Shireen Al-Assami to share their experience. So if we could have you guys all on the stage, please.
We'll start with Mukhtar.
How do I put this in present mode? Oh, I just click down. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm going to be talking about dealing with designer's block and building relationships with professors. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Mukhtar. I'm a third year in the design stream, and I'm doing a minor in urban studies. So the goal of this presentation is to help you navigate what to do when a studio project has you stuck and what your next steps should be. So let's start from the beginning. Let's say you just got this assignment and you have no idea where to go. You have no ideas. So the first step is usually going to be looking for a precedent or inspiration. I've compiled a list of websites that I typically use when I'm looking for inspiration that I thought would be helpful. So the first one is Arc Daily. This website has projects, pictures, and competitions. Design Boom talks about architecture, interiors, and also has interviews with architects. So does Dazine. Then we have Architectural Digest, which has a lot of cool architecture things, but also celebrity home tours, if that's something you're interested in. We have AfAsia ArcZine. My studio prof from last semester showed me this one and said, you guys should look at beautiful things. So if you want to look at beautiful things, I recommend this one. This one also has more drawings compared to the other ones that are more like pictures and precedents. And then we have Pinterest, which well known and like well loved, but I will say Pinterest doesn't always give credit to the creators or the architects. So I'm kind of wary when I'm using this one. And then I also wanted to say, I recommend going to the Daniels library. There's a lot of cool books with pictures of different precedents you can use as well. So I do want to point out that there's a difference between taking inspiration from something compared to just taking it and ripping it off. So an example of this could be my ARC 201. I was struggling with the final assignment, how I wanted to do the facade. So I saw these wooden slats on Pinterest and I adapted them to my assignment. So my word was revolve, and I decided to use these wooden slats and have them revolve to create openings and be a part of the facade. So let's say you have precedence, you have inspiration, now you have an idea, and now you're working through the project. There's a lot of tools at Daniels that will help you do this. So the first one is the studio team. If you're having trouble with a software question or you just need someone to talk your design with, the studio team is a great resource. You can talk to them and they're all super, super nice. And then we also have the Daniel Studio Skills Trails, which is a Miro board that I hope you've seen before, but this has resources from things like modeling, rendering, hand drawing, literally anything studio related that you could imagine. So now I'm just going to talk about making connections and having relationships with your studio professors. There's going to be profs that you naturally click with and then profs that you naturally don't, but I'd say it's possible to do well, and it doesn't necessarily have to have an implication on the outcome of your work or your grades. So I will say, if they have office hours and you have questions, go and come prepared. So they don't want their time wasted. When you go, bring them options and have reasoning. ARC 200 is a studio where I really struggled with how I wanted to go about representing certain things. There were so many colors and approaches that I wanted to do. And I found the best way to see eye to eye with my prof was literally just bring her option, and I defended the bottom left idea. And then we finally kind of agreed on it. And then I also wanted to say, don't be afraid to rework things. Your first attempt will never be your last. So even just like the first map you do in ARC 200, I had 10 different renditions of it throughout the semester, and you can see it looks wildly different from where it started. So the best way to build relationships with your profs is to communicate. Don't be afraid to ask questions or even disagree, as long as you have reasoning and you're being respectful. I think productive conversation is the best way to click or get recognized by a prof. So I hope you enjoyed this quick presentation and learned a thing or two. Thank you.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, hold on. I did you click off. Oh. Hi. For anybody that don't know me, my name is Brian, and this is my upper year mentor presentation. And so what I'm gonna discuss something that every single one of you probably did. How not to put all-nighters. I have done so many of these, so I kind of know how. I kind of did figure out what not to do. So let's break it down. First, we have to figure out what causes all-nighters. I think there are three reasons. One is time management, because like we're all in the middle of struggling and figuring that out. Second is the number of iterations, because after you show your work to your professor for a critique, then they're not always going to go along with it, so you have to redo everything. And the third is any unexpected events such as your computer crashing, because I've done that and it was not great. So now how do you avoid all of that? First of all, you have to really plan out by setting the priorities. What I think is that you should plan out first is going to any in-person resources that you need in Daniels, such as if you're in second year, the laser cutter, you have to make sure you have to really do that advanced first. And also the workshop machine, they can also be booked completely if you don't plan out first. So you have to really, I think you have to really prioritize first. Then I think you should grab the materials and the tools, because like you have to go to course plans and such, and then if it closes, then well, you're out of luck, right? But then what that's my ARC 280, by the way. So that's so what I will do is I will work on anything physical work first, such as models, and then any digital work. Also we have to really think on like programs such as wait, I never used B-Ray before. I had to figure out what it is as soon as possible. So my general rule of thumb is if you have like a certain time period that you think it'll take, I say take 1.5 times more than each task. Then what you will get is that you'll eventually get several mini deadlines, and then you'll just have to do one by one as soon as possible. I suggest starting at least a week before the due date. So, and then plan all that on the first day of the assignment. Then the next is the feedback, because you show your work to a professor, they're not gonna like it, so you have to redo everything. So now you're back to square one now. So, here's what I did. I wrote down all of the feedbacks, so that I always remember on what to do after each critique. Then I ask anyone for any clarification, so like if just reaching out to professors or TAs or like any staffs in Daniels. Then what I did, then what I realized is I have to really be flexible with the plan and the idea, and by I mean is I have to be very realistic, because if your Rhino crashes or your Illustrator is like taking super long, you have to immediately think, what should I do meanwhile, so that I don't waste this much time, right? So that you don't have to mess up and to do more readers. Also, a lot of readers is actually still very common thing. So you don't like be too ambitious. That's my general advice. Now, what if you have to wake up at night? Very contradictory, but it does happen. So I think at least just take care of your health. Like at least try to get some naps, or and just grab anything to eat, because if you work on an empty stomach, it's like several times worse, I think. Also, last bit, I know a lot of you goes to like Tim Hortons to grab coffee and stuff. Personally, I have worked without drinking any coffee, so I don't agree with it, I'll be honest. But it's definitely up to you. Thanks for watching. Also, don't be like this guy.
Thank you, Booktower and Brian. Can we have Aya and Shireen? Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Syed and I'm doing technology stream, and I'm also minoring in environmental studies. And today I'm presenting on my experience of working on one-to-one scale model. Yeah, so I'll start. Oh yeah, got it. So I was lucky to have experience in Daniels of doing a one-to-one scale model this year for my 380 studio. And I would want to start with the location that we were assigned for this project. It's Stormhaven Backcountry Campground, and I was also lucky to visit it, and just like it helped me in many ways to think further about my design and how I'm gonna work on that and what material. It's like it's bamboo and like how I'm gonna apply it there. Also like thinking about weather conditions of this place. So yeah, those are the pictures and the site plan. Some site section, that's how the project was supposed to look on the site, and it's also like show the purpose. It's like a gathering space for people who are camping in Stormhaven. And going further, I want to talk about the dramatic assembly. The model for this project was generated in Grasshopper. Here you can see the process of generation that me and my team have developed throughout this project. Yep. All of this geometry is done in Grasshopper, and all of the elements you see are going to be, and they was fabricated with the help of bamboo. Here's the final drawing of our project. And talking about some technical aspect of it, there's a compression ring that create the compressor to hold the structure together, because without this special detail, it would just not stand. We actually had a lot of problems installing it, because one thing is do it digitally and plan it out and read about what but the other thing is actually build it, and it didn't work at first. So yeah, what we figured out eventually, there are some drawings. And going back to experimental analysis, I want to show you the actual process. This is the picture of our first attempt of installing this model. As you can see, it didn't work, and we were very confused because it was not quite standing, even though like we applied all of the applicable aspects. By the way, I want to show you, I brought one of the columns with me. You can, after the presentation and the event, you can go and check it out yourself. Yeah, so this is, if you look at the slide, this is one of the columns that we did for the project. It was very hard to fabricate, I'm gonna lie, but fortunately we did it. And going back to the method of, I think also very important, interesting aspect of this project is that we had to bend bamboo, and no one knew how to do this. So we had to figure it ourselves and test many different methods. So we tried to soak it, we tried to basically split one thin stick and bend it separately. It didn't work. And then we used steam bending box. Maybe some of you have seen it in the workshop, and we just had to keep each stick 10 hours in steam bender. And immediately after that, we had to apply it to jigs. You can see it there. I brought it here too, there on the site. And we basically, that's like the thing that helped us to create various shapes and this very specific dome shape for our project. Yeah, so this is the slide, but what I just wanted to add is that like my aim in presenting this project is to encourage you guys maybe in the future not to be afraid to do some big models or something that's like, maybe a little bit unconventional, or like if it's something that no one can help you with, because at the end of the day, you will learn something yourself, and it's just a very interesting journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Shireen. If you don't know me, I'm also in third year technology stream. So today I'm going to speak about navigating academic life as well as social life. Ironically, I didn't finish my sentence because I didn't have time. I'm going to start with general pointers that I think everybody has to relate to at some point. And the first one is social and personal well-being is crucial to proper academic performance. And I personally feel like because I worked a lot with groups in the technology stream, I feel like I meet a lot of people who tend to beat themselves up for not finishing on time or not doing their best. I don't feel like this is efficient per se. So navigating social life as well as academic life comes to an expense, yes, but it's also, like you have to do it because you're at Daniels. Why not? Second point I want to talk about is taking a break. And even if it's just for an hour or 5 minutes, it can increase productivity and work quality. Because we're in such a convenient location in downtown Toronto, there's a lot of places around UFT where you can go just for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, walk around and look around. And I'm gonna give you examples later on. Group work in and out of class is not purely an academic activity. It is also an opportunity to increase your social circle. Ever since, I'm not promoting for technology stream, but ever since I got there, I met a lot of people. And just because it's a very tight stream, everybody knows each other. And yeah, working in groups tend to have its bad side, but also it has the good side of just taking a break as a group and going out together. This is a cliche, but it's actually very helpful. And I realized that in my third year when I started attending clubs and I started going to events. And I'm also gonna elaborate on this later on as well. Anyway, moving on, respect private time and set personal boundaries. Personally speaking, I really enjoy two things in my life. One of it is cinema and one of it is reading books. And just because I'm a Daniel student and I don't really have time to read books or do any of that, I have a list of the books that I intend on reading whenever I have time. But recently I've been reading on my bus commute, which is taking about an hour and a half. So that's good. Set one thing to look forward to every day. And for me, this would be I'm developing a project. I kind of really like cinema. I wanted to show you this little video that I made, but I'm not sure if I'm able to even. I'm gonna turn on the music, but I really like editing, and I learned editing 2 years ago because of my portfolio when I applied to Daniels. But yeah, I'm currently working on another movie that I'm also gonna develop, and it's all shots from here at Daniels, so that's gonna be exciting. You can see the videos on my Instagram that I'm gonna show you and in the end at the end of the presentation. Also, I wanted to really talk about cinema just because it's really nice. And I feel like as an architecture student, there's always something that inspires you. And for me, this would be cinema and just looking at shots or watching very cinematography based movies. Those are my two favorite movies. If you're familiar with Chungking Express, it's a Chinese movie. It's really good. You should watch it. And Exterior Night, it's an Egyptian movie, but it has English translation. So yeah. This one is really important as well, and I realized that recently, and it's one-time trips and events. Here at UFT, there's plenty of clubs that you can visit, and there's always events hosting and all that. This was from a ski trip from a club here at UFT, and it was really nice going out, even though I debated it so much because I had so much work, but it was really worth it. And walks around Daniels. There's always so many places to discover, so many people to meet. This was from 2 days ago. I really had a huge deadline today, and it was worth 40% of my mark. And I still went 2 days ago to the AGO, and to a place that sells Harry Potter stuff. It's all here at Daniels. Just free yourself for like 2 hours and treat yourself for a walk. It's not that bad. Don't feel bad about it. So yeah, thank you so much. And this is my Instagram if you want to add me. I'm sorry for having so many trouble in this. I really wanted to show you the mirror board, but you can shoot me a message and I can show it to you.
If we can get all of our panelists for the first segment on stage, please, to begin our Q&A session. So Bakhtawer, Brian, Shireen, and Aya. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and Dara will bring a mic to you.
Hi. My question is, do you remember a time where you got like the lowest mark of your life, and how did you react to it and maybe overcame that situation?
Hi. That's a really good question because I took Math 135 in my first year. And one of the quizzes I got on was 0, and it was my first time getting a 0 in my life. How did I react to it? It was my first year, so I spoke to my sister. She's older than me, 3 years older, and she told me it's fine. It's University of Toronto. You're going to the best university in Canada. You're gonna get a 0. It's okay. So ever since I got lower marks, but it wasn't lower than 70, but it's still like, you know, you don't beat yourself up for that. It's a once in a lifetime. I feel like everyone has to go through it, even if you're a nerd. It's okay. It's a 0. It's not gonna go on. But at the end, I ended up with an average of an A plus. So it's fine. It's once in a lifetime.
I have like a general question. At like what point did you guys like start taking streams like seriously or like applying for streams seriously?
So personally for me, I just figured out that I wanted the technology stream after taking 180. Like I would say it was like the first time when I was like realized that I'm interested in that. And I feel like it's like it's a simple way to figure it out, but like 280, I don't know if anybody of you is taking it right now. I just realized that it's something very like interesting for me, and this direction overall is very in a way innovative, I would say. And also like it's a very niche architecture. It's far away from the like, you know, classic or from what like design does. So yeah, I would say like this courses you're taking during your first and second year in a way kind of like give you a general idea of what the stream is going to give you.
I'll say I didn't really worry about streams, but I've always tried hardest in studio classes just because I found them the most fun and enjoyable. And then once I learned about streams, Jav 101 and Arc 201 were my like favorite courses. And that's what kind of led me to want to get into design at all. So I don't know, I didn't have streams in mind during first year, but I'll say during second year is when people start talking about it and like gain awareness. And that's when you start trying extra hard in studio.
Hello? how do you get past a review where you got absolutely trashed? Like let's say you're a guest critic and your instructor just rips into you. How do you move on after that? General question, no personal experience.
Sorry, I can answer that. So I've also got like a lot of brutal comments on like feedbacks. So I think you have to realize that all of the feedbacks, they're trying to tell you something. So like try figure out what are the document and what they want from the work. So yeah.
I was gonna say, usually the day after, or the day of the review and it went horribly, you kind of feel defeated and like just take the day to chill. But I don't know, I think thinking about your future portfolio is important. So even though it's like your final project, taking time to continue to work on it and make it better, and using the crit that they gave you is really important. But I mean, how I deal with it is just taking a day to just reflect.
I would just say like I had, especially during the second year, like this kind of situation, it just takes time to get over it. And I would say the most important thing is like, even if you'll be feeling like very bad, just like you'll feel like you're not doing good overall, or you don't really have, you know, a bright future in the like in this sphere, just don't think about it in that way. It's just one review, one class. It doesn't mean that much, and there's will be so many other opportunities to just like show your talents and to develop and learn something new. So just really take your time to, yeah, learn your mistakes and just move on. Don't like focus on this one failure.
Okay, and I really wanted to emphasize this point. I realized this recently. It's a problem here at Daniels where critics come to you and they have no prior knowledge whatsoever of the assignment. So they tend to have harsh comments. But at the end of the day, you need to know that your professor is the one grading. So just if you ever go through this situation, just take a deep breath, and you have to trust your process and trust yourself, and take the comments that you got and build on it and translate it in your next assignments.
Yeah, I'll just step in here too, just to kind of answer about the last two questions. So one, I know you asked about streams. So I was in comprehensive. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is that if you are in comprehensive, it's still possible to get into master's programs. So you really need to follow your passions. And the one good thing about comprehensive too is that if you are interested in something else, like environmental studies, psychology, whatever it may be, don't be afraid to explore those as well, because they can also benefit you in your design. So I did an environmental studies major along with my comprehensive stream, and I'm now in the master's program here at Daniels. And then two, just about bad crits, trust me, it still happens through your master's. We've talked to students in their final year of master's and it still happens. It's always going to happen, but as the panel kind of mentioned, you just have to remember it's a learning experience. It's going to happen to everybody. Not every project's going to go perfectly. So you just got to take it for what it is, take some valuable learning lessons from it and help it, take those and have them help you move forward for your next projects, and just remember about it. And then the other thing I will say too is that I know everybody wants to be ambitious about studio projects all the time, but just also try to remember like what you think you can handle. Sometimes being overly ambitious may put you in tough spots. So just think about that too when it comes to your designs.
Thank you. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce our second segment, the student experience. We have invited Maria, Butauer, and Isaac. So to our panelists, thank you.
Move. Please move. Oh, hi everyone. My name is Maria, and I'm in the third year architecture student in the design stream, also minoring in visual studies. And a little bit about me, I love tea and I don't like coffee. It's a hot take, but I do respect coffee lovers. So, why take a minor in visual studies? I chose visual studies because I was going to take art courses anyways, and I thought it would be cool for it to contribute to something. And surprise, surprise, I really like art. Most of all, it's another way of being creative that's not design, and it's way, way more flexible than architecture. I believe it's beneficial to see two sides of creative coin. I'll show you some artworks I've done, what I've learned from them, and how it's different from architecture. A point of difference, your work is way more personal. You get to just explore different mediums, creative ways to express yourself, your relationship to people, things with approaches that I personally didn't think was possible. In the course, Works on Paper, we had to pick an object that had value to us and reproduce it with the medium of paper. This is the class that I learned that the difference between a 4-year-old scribbling on a piece of paper and an artwork is that the artist gives it depth, gives it meaning, value, and narrative. That artwork needs to go through a process of trial, lots of error, and tons of research. The object I chose is a vase that my mom bought when she first moved to Canada. As an immigrant, she suffered in multiple ways, being so far from home, gardening, decorating, and pouring her efforts into raising 2 children with her escape. I recreated the vase with paper mache and the technique of embossing. Personally, through this process, I connected so much with my mother, and also figured out while writing my artist statement that I'd love to write poems. This project was a personal breakthrough in the way that I approach making art. My goal was exploring depth in the process rather than focusing on the outcome. This artwork was also chosen for the Eyeball exhibition last semester. You might have actually passed by this in the hallway. It's an annual survey of artworks by Daniels Undergraduate students in visual studies. This is an amazing opportunity that you have just by taking a visual studies course. Another point of difference. My prof this semester says, design answers questions and good design seeks out the question, while artists ask further questions and good art is skeptical of normative answers. Art welcomes you to be super weird, super ambiguous, non-representational. Art and architecture have different goals. In visual studies, your ideas can totally blur the lines of reality. In drawing and experimental practices, we had to create an explorative drawing that investigated your everyday routine in some way. I chose the act of burning incense to mimic the atmosphere of a church while I pray at home, an action that's in a respectful head nod to the special incense burnt in liturgy. It is the smell of my childhood and the key to creating a transitional atmosphere. I believe church is a slice of heaven, so there's this instance of feeling that I'm trying to replicate. This artwork is providing one person at a time an individual experience to reach a state of being that is neither here or there, to reach something greater that we can ever understand, and to embrace this unknown after the paper ends. I didn't physically create a complete space like in architecture. I extracted a feeling and represented it with an experience in which the destination is different for each person based on belief. So, how do I bring visual studies into architecture? You find yourself being able to sew your personality into your architecture projects. Really try to connect with the people theoretically occupying your space and what kind of atmosphere you want to create. The most important thing I've learned in visual studies that puts my heart super duper at ease while doing architecture is that every project is just an exploration, a work in progress, and not something to fret over, but a process to enjoy. Make every new exploration an exciting new sensation. Avoid the inflation of doubts and worries. Don't be in such a hurry. This is a journey. It's only in its beginning. Don't be scared chugging Red Bulls because you weren't prepared. Please don't pull your hair. Ask for a helping hand whenever you can. It's not a race to get a pretty A or get a pretty grade or chase the highest GPA. With no emotion, hang on and flow with the notion that every project is just an exploration and never its final destination. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's me again. And the topic of this presentation is going to be why and how to get involved in doing an urban studies minor. So I'll start talking about my experience and all the ways I've gotten involved and the things they've taught me. So in my first year, I ran for first year rep for AFSU, and luckily I won, but I was also the only one that ran. So regardless, this position gave me a lot of insight into the faculty and also introduced me to some of my peers in upper years. Now I go to these same people, which are actually, a lot of them are in the grad school at Daniels now. And I go to them for advice. So one reason you should get involved is that you meet some great people, a lot of which are willing to help you and give you advice along the way. Another huge benefit to getting involved is learning new skills and discovering new interests. So later in the summer between first and second year and all of second year, I was involved as a work study student for the studio help desk. And I worked under Lily, who is the studio technologist. This is one of the most beneficial jobs I've ever had. So in the summer between first and second year, I've created this mural board, which I really hope you've seen before. It's like my child. But before working on this project, I had never thought about how to graphically represent such great amounts of information and went through a lot of trial and error before deciding on like the final ducks that I had. I also had no experience, and this is the final layout that we decided, but I also had no experience drawing digitally and had barely used Illustrator until this role. But this job helped me improve my skills and helped me discover a passion for graphic and digital design. And not to mention, I met some lovely people like my bosses, Lily and Clara and Isaac and Christiana and the fellow work study team. So another benefit is that these skills and experiences you have by getting involved open new doors for you. So after creating that mural board for Daniels, I was hired as a work study student by OISE, which is the teaching faculty at U of T, and they hired me to create a mural board for them because during the job interview, they asked me like what special skills I had, and I mentioned and showed them the link to the last one, and they were like, "We want you to do that for us." So and yeah, and the last ways I'm involved in the faculty right now are through AALD. I'm the director of operations and mentorship. I'm a mentor, which are the two clubs that collaborated on this event. I also wanted to mention the next event of the series is going to be Monday at 5:30, and it's a stream info session, and I highly recommend going. But anyways, at ALD, I plan and teach workshops for the studios. I love seeing what the younger years are up to and giving my opinion on your designs and answering software questions. And I also love having chats with my mentees, although they're all pretty self-sufficient. But meeting people and having conversations about design and architecture is something I genuinely enjoy. And if it gets put on my resume and helps me out, like, why not do it? I know it's hard to manage your time and be involved with extracurriculars and schoolwork and some part-time jobs and commuting, and trust me, I relate. Last year I worked 2 jobs and I commuted last year. I won't touch on time management too much because Shireen had a great presentation on it, but I will say just make a plan and stick to it. My tool of choice is Google Calendar. I highly recommend it, obviously. And some months and weeks are going to look like this, and they're going to be super hectic and busy. But as long as you can visually see that everything can get done, I think it helps a lot. So anyways, I hope I've tried and I hope I convinced you to get involved in one way or another with the faculty. You meet new people, you learn new skills, and because of that, more doors open for you. I'm almost done, but I just want to touch on my minor, and I promise that'll be the last you hear of me. But I'm doing a minor in urban studies. If you enjoyed the material of ARC 253 and like writing essays and reading, it might be something to consider. Personally, I did it because we have to take electives, and I wasn't really sure which ones I should take. So I thought might as well get a minor out of it because I wasn't really sure what else I was interested in. It's relatively related to the field, and I think it's helped me in a lot of Daniel's courses as well. So I think they go well together, architecture and urban planning. I'm not sure I fully love it, but again, I don't know what else I would be doing. So if you're kind of like me and you're not sure which electives to take or like which direction to go in, I do recommend it. And I think it's a good idea to just pick courses that will help you achieve another major or a minor. So yeah, thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Isaac. If you don't know me, I'm in design stream, third year, and my presentation is actually super similar to Buck's. We've done a lot of the same things, but I guess the ultimate goal for me is to try to convince you guys to participate in more extracurricular things. When I think of my experience at Daniels and all the good times and the bad ones, I noticed that most of the good ones come from things that aren't necessarily my schoolwork. They come from all these other things that I'm going to show you. And so just a bit about me and what I've done. Right now I'm in AFSU as well, and I'm the secretary of AFSU. I'm a mentor and I have 3 great mentees, so shout out to you guys. I worked with Lily at the studio help desk, and I did a research assistant volunteer position with Professor Iblings, which I'm sure you guys all had for history. I wanted to focus on my volunteer research position, just to show you guys that there's really like opportunities anywhere. You just have to like reach out and try to get them. In first year, it was COVID, I was home, and I wanted to get involved in Daniels, but it seemed like there was nothing. But then I thought, let me email some profs, ask them if they need help with research. And luckily, Professor Iblings did. And in the end, I did research for him for the rest of the semester. And now, like, we're like super close. I talk to him all the time. He's written me reference letters. So just by reaching out and asking a prof, hey, do you need some help? I got a position. It wasn't paid, but I learned a lot of stuff. So I definitely don't regret that. There are so many things you can do at Daniels. Like it's almost overwhelming, but luckily on the ecosystem, which Buck Tower talked about, there's an entire section about like the student unions, the clubs, work study positions. So literally you can just go there and browse through, and like you'll definitely find something that you're interested in. So just out of curiosity, if you're in any of these organizations, raise your hand. All right. Hopefully by the end of this year, it's like everyone, because lots of these things you just join, like you don't even have to apply, like they're desperate for people. So like just join. So now my last attempt to try to convince you guys to join something, benefits of getting involved. One is meeting new friends. Most of the people I've met and developed relationships with were like through work and counsel and all that. So you'll meet a lot of people, you'll make good connections. So like that connection with the professor I talked to earlier, you'll learn new skills. Of course, it's always good to add stuff to your resume. And then lots of these things you're giving back to the community. And if you're not that nice a person, there's things where you can make money too. So yeah. Thanks for listening. I just have 5 slides, so you're welcome. And yeah.
All right, thank you, Maria, Booktower, and Isaac. Maria and Booktower, if you can join Isaac on the stage for a short Q&A session. We'll now open the floor for questions, so please raise your hands and Dara will pass you the mic.
I was just wondering like where we can find the Daniels ecosystem Miro board.
If you go on the studio's Instagram, I believe it's studios.daniels, there's a link tree with all of the Miro board links, including the ecosystem.
Hi, what would you say is the one thing that you think the Daniels architecture program really has that's like really unique to that program than other schools and post-secondary institutions? And also, what resources do you think that, you know, it's from Daniels and you think students should really elevate that experience? Like any student resources and experiences that you really want other people to know and really have like a take on?
I feel like in general, like just being in architecture, we're super like tight knit. Like I talk to friends in other programs and they don't know anyone. Like we're on a circle. Like it's almost like we're a separate thing. So I think that's really cool about Daniels. About resources, I would say that I can't think of anything specific right now, but just going back to the Daniels ecosystem, there's like literally everything, like any question that you've probably had going throughout first year, it's probably there, like how to plot, how to laser cut, like everything's there. So I'd say it's a gold mine, in my opinion.
I'd also like to add in your studios, like make an effort to make friends, talk with your peers. Like that's how your network gets bigger. And that's how you might be able to find more opportunities.
I'm not sure how it compares to other schools or programs, but I will say there's a lot of resources at Daniels that are like geared towards helping you do well or make your work better. So the workshop and studio especially, I feel like aren't taken advantage of enough, or not a lot of people know about all the things that they offer, all the tools they have. So yeah, I recommend going to the help desk just to talk, or even going down to workshop. All the staff is really nice and they can kind of like guide you through how to make your model or what tools you could use to make it more interesting.
Thank you.
Oh, true. So my question is about your portfolio for the streams. Did you invest more time into competition work, perfecting studio projects from school, or kind of doing your own passion project kind of stuff?
I will say personally, and I think most people have this as well, they only have academic projects in their portfolio. I think I recall that being encouraged in the info session that the registrar has, which will happen eventually. But like for me personally, I only had academic projects, no personal or competitions.
I would add to that, like, it's not about just putting everything, like really pick the nice stuff. Cause like, they don't want to be like looking through all your stuff, you know, and like fix it up too. So like focus on a couple things, make them look nice. So then in their head, they think all your work looks like that, you know?
Sorry, just to build off what Isaac said, be very selective about the stuff that you put in your portfolio. You only get a like select number of pages. Like for example, I only had one project from first year that was 1 page and everything else was all my second year work. So even if you're just doing academic, I feel like you're going to run out of room.
Can you give us more insight on what you do as a research assistant?
Basically for me, so as I said, it was online. so we would have like weekly meetings where I would bring my research, and in doing research, he would give me names of like really obscure architects, especially like South American ones. And I would just scan through like academic databases, even like just like Google everything, and just compile a list of resources, or like links to things, um, and just write a little summary about what they're about. So like an annotated bibliography, basically. And then I would send it to him. We would just chat briefly. And yeah, so it's just like basically finding things for him. Yeah.
Hi, I'm just wondering, when do you guys recommend us to start working on our portfolios?
So because Daniels is Daniels, they'll send a really late email about it. And it's like super sketchy. They'll be like, just send your portfolio on this email. And you're like sitting there like, is it gonna send? Will it send? But anyway, most of your work, especially if you personally, I did design, most of your work will be from 200 and 201. So if you're in first year, think about that. And just like really pay attention to what you're doing when you put those in your portfolio. You're gonna have like at least like 4 weeks after second semester ends, and you can just do it then. Like, don't worry about it during second year. Just focus on your projects during second year. So you don't really have to like fix them up a little bit, but it won't take that much time.
Yeah, kind of similar to what Maria said. So you finish school like mid-April and it's typically due first week of May. So you have some time, but I will say after your final reviews, fix up everything that they said so you don't have to do it during those 3 weeks. And then also after every project, make a folder with like the final like JPEGs. So you have everything and you don't have to like keep re-exporting when you're finally making your portfolio. You just have it all laid out. So when it's time, you can experiment with layouts and margins and all of that rather than worried about finding where your files are.
Yeah. So to jump off of that, please don't leave this to the very last minute, because I was like dying at the end because there's actually a limit to the size of your file. So you have to compress your file. My file was massive and the email wouldn't send at like 11:50 and I was dying. It was not okay. So make sure like when you export, it doesn't have to be this like nice fancy PDF, highest quality, whatever DPI. Just export it. They're going to look at it for like 0.2 seconds. So make your file small, please.
Okay, with that, we conclude our first two segments. We'll now take a 5-minute break. Feel free to grab some food, drink some water, and we'll come back for our last two segments at 8:25. We'll get started shortly. If everyone can head back to their seats, please.
Didn't know. We're just making it. Wow.
this? Okay. Working? Up? Yeah.
So I'd like to introduce our third segment, Outside the Classroom. For this segment, we have invited Riji Liu, Christiane Chung, and Noor Al-Sahel to share their experiences.
Hello everyone. My name is Ruji Liu, and I'm a third year architecture student in design stream. So today I'm going to talk about my experience of a competition that I did last summer. Oh, well, where is it? At the bottom. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, so this marrow bar here shows the page that I created for my team for last summer. It's called Architecture Competition Summer Session. So what I did is I invited a bunch of my friends and I created this page for them to invite themselves to talk about their architecture skills and their strengths. And then I put a lot of information about different competitions. And then for each little frames, they can put it like whichever competition they're interested in joining. And basically I was sort of playing the role of team leader for each of the competition that I participated in. And here I listed out 3 of them. So today I'm inviting and all of you guys who are interested in joining this architecture competition during the summer, because they're gonna benefit you in the following ways. Like they can enhance your design skills. Well, let's keep on skipping to next slides. And it helps you to build a portfolio, networking, and it helps you to learn new technology and material and get you to be recognized. And here's some skills that I listed out for you if you wanted to join a competition. And this is a portfolio page that I put it for my one of my competitions. And so for this one, it is called International Building Design Competition, and we get to learn a lot about sustainable material and building constructions. And we actually faced a lot of difficulties. For example, we started pretty late, end up getting only 1.5 months to finish everything. And we don't have like a technology students in our team. So we have to figure out all of the construction information ourselves. But at the end, we end up getting a prize and everyone's really happy. And we learned a lot of skills from this competition, some new terms. And here's my suggestion for anyone who wants to do a competition this summer. One of the most important things is that you need to consider if you have the time or if you're really interested in doing this competition. If you are, so maybe you need to schedule your time carefully to make sure you can continuously participating and contributing to your team. And here are some sources that I found that might be helpful for you. So you can go to this website and check out those sources that where I get most of my competition informations on. Some of them are free, some of them are sponsored by the competition leaders. And so they're
Oh, sorry. So the first one is the Daniels website. It's like the official website. They put it to invite you to do the competitions that's recognized by Daniels. And the competition sponsors also have their websites. Those are not free, but I guess they're like well known and recognized as well. And there are some like resources that you can look at that is like free and worldwide known. For the two of those I did, one of them is like sponsored or organized by the university, National University of Singapore. So in that competition, you get to know their profs and join their seminar, and you get to learn a lot in the end. So that's my presentation. Thank you, guys.
Hello. My name is Christiana. I'm a fourth year architecture specialist in the design stream, and I'm minoring in visual study. This is just a kind of like timeline of my trajectory over undergrad. You can kind of see academics and then extracurriculars and work. Ooh. Split up. All to say that if you want to ask me about any of these things as well, you can. And also to plug an event that's happening. Oh my God. To plug an event that's happening next week on Wednesday with ABSU and FLL. There'll be three speakers, Petro, Sak, and Daniel Chung, who'll talk about sustainability in design from research to practice. And there'll also be industry professionals, so it's a kind of networking opportunity. This is really flipping on its own accord. But I'm here to talk about Summer Studio Abroad at Athenas, which was with Professor Petros Babasikas. It was 1 week in Toronto, followed by 2 weeks in Athens, and then a final week in Toronto. And the class was set up and structured by a series of walks, which focused on the Athenian Commons, so public space. And in terms of output, we created a log, a travel log, and 2 composite drawings, one of which was in collaboration with students from the University of Patras. And one of the main questions in this class was, how do you design representation of public space? So these are what my notes looked like from the first week. And we kind of started thinking about the composite drawing in Toronto. I decided to do the National Gardens with my partner. This is just a map of the National Gardens, so you guys get a little bit of context. I created it after the course was completed for my portfolio. This was a conceptualization, or one of the first ideas I had for the composite drawing, which was looking at kind of the history of the site. And I kind of want to do it sort of like an illustration in the reflection of the pond. But here you can see after going to the site and doing sketches on site, I decided instead to do an isometric of not only the pond, but the pergola sort of structure underneath. And I decided here in this drawing to focus on moments of pause, because you can kind of see in this plan drawing that the path and the design of the gardens really facilitates circulation and a constant wandering. And then on a larger scale, the surrounding context, the urban fabric is very dense. And so I thought that these moments of pause were really key in the garden. These are some more sketches of kind of like on site, trying to figure out, when you don't have a very great open source CAD file, like how do you draw from ground zero? So then going into the walks, one of the walks was the historic center. I had a lot more to say about this, but I think I'll keep it pretty brief. And it was interesting seeing this specific church because of how the architect brought stones from a bunch of different sources in Athens and built this church kind of with what he had. This was the Roman Agora and the Emperor Hadrian's Library, which was a cultural center at the time. Victoria Square. Victoria Square is kind of in this neighborhood which it's kind of based in Victoria Square, of course, which was a sort of informal sort of settlement with refugees in Athens. And this collective of artists created not only a community center, but a sort of social sculpture. And they're really challenging questions of like, who is a contemporary Athenian? The Kyriakos archaeological site, this is the edge of the historic city. And it was the name Kyriakos comes from the ceramicists that were in the area. And all throughout this site, you can see really great funeral kind of like sculptures. This is Areopagus. I'm so sorry. I could never pronounce anything in Athens, like there for 2 weeks, couldn't get a grasp. And so this hill is kind of like, it acted as the Supreme Court. And what was important about the site was that you could look down and see the Agora. That was kind of one of Petros's sort of like theses, is that urban space is divided into the Agora, which is the market, the garden, and the monument. So from this site, you could look down and see the Agora, which is the marketplace, the legislative assembly, so kind of the government, and then also the center of the gods. So again, talking about kind of the myth of Athens and its representation and understanding as a city. Of course, the Acropolis and the Parthenon, which is really interesting, seeing how it's being reconstructed. This is the Temple of Athena, and you can't really see, or maybe you can, but there's an olive tree, which is the site of the battle between Athena and Poseidon. Dropitsona Park, one of the other kind of themes in the course was drawscape, so kind of liminal spaces. And in this case, an old industrial site, which has become a public space. And you can see a couple different urban elements, such as a church. In other places, there's cafeterias and basketball courts. And it's become a park that's very natural. And it was really just because the public had decided to kind of take ownership of the space and create these small urban interventions instead of just kind of waiting for a larger designer or architect to very formally construct the space. We looked at stoas, which are these kind of atriums and kind of like between building arcades and malls. And here you can see, it's very interesting. You see kind of the edge of, or like the kind of ancient walls running through the stoa. And this is actually in a print shop. And so they kind of just like put their phone and some papers on it, and they're using the ancient walls as a shell. The site of our second composite drawing was Agiazonas. So it's a sort of path, but there's also different spaces along the path, including this market. This market was also kind of similar to Victoria Square. It's a place that's really being revived by artists and kind of locals, and it was originally closed and just used by squatters, but once it opened up, it became, or opened up again, it became a very important place for local businesses, artists, and they have like kind of like weekly markets and stuff. There's also this church. There's actually 3 on this site. This is 2 of them. Oh, sorry. And then an asylum for the infirmed. And these were key sites in our second composite drawing, which looks like this. And this composite drawing was really, oh, the line work is crap right now. This composite drawing was really looking at thresholds and access to the city. And so the market is pretty open. The church is walled, so maybe not as open. And then the asylum is like completely closed off. So looking at kind of issues of the city in terms of public space and access. This is kind of what Athens looks like in terms of its urban fabric, the polykadkia. And on the left, you'll see the building where we did our mid-review for the class. It was really interesting because it was actually designed by a colleague of Le Corbusier. And then it's been really kind of like well taken care of and renovated. Yeah. On the weekends, we went to the beach. This is like a really gorgeous image of the coast in a small town outside of Athens. And on that site, there's also this bricolage church. Super cool. It was kind of like built into the rock. And then the Acropolis Museum, which I think is just like a gorgeously designed museum. And also, of course, like really amazing to see the artifacts. Same with the National Archaeological Museum. And then finally, the log, I have mine, which is over there, and I kind of set it up sort of diary style. My friend Yana did kind of more of a very like editorial, almost like magazine-like log. And then my friend Denise became really kind of enamored by the kind of rocks and floorscape of Athens. So she did a lot of scans and images focusing on that. So just to show you guys the many different approaches that can be taken. Overall, I thought it was really interesting to take this class because you kind of, I mean, a lot of us have had the privilege to travel before, but in this class, you really kind of see it from an architectural lens, and you really critically and analytically look at the city with not only Petros or whoever you decide to take studio abroad with, but also whichever guests that they invite. So, yeah.
All right, hi everyone. So I'll be doing a presentation on design build experience I did last summer. Hopefully this presentation is complementary to the information session that was held by the registrar just yesterday. However, please direct any technical questions to the registrar that you may have. Also, I would like to mention that the things that I mentioned here, yes, while most of them do apply to all design builds, a lot of the things that I do touch upon are also very specific to the design build that you end up pursuing. So to talk about the design build that I specifically was involved in, it was the Corner Commons that was located at the intersection of Jane and Finch. This is near York University. And essentially we were tasked with creating a stage as well as a few shading structures. And what the process essentially was like, there is an application process, and once you do get accepted into the design build program, you're essentially given 2 weeks to design and then also build a structure. And so this is what the original plan that we had set out to do. However, it ended up looking more like this, in which the design stage actually extended into our second week. Also, a huge group of us actually ended up also constructing modular elements at Daniels and then later joining the group that was on our site. And so this just, goes to show that how in a lot of projects that you do, you end up, with one intent, but due to design being design, it ends up, taking a different form. And what the design stage really looked like, it was essentially, sketches, a lot of sketches. Our instructors were they work at Perkins and Wills. And so they would invite a lot of their colleagues, structural engineers and architects to come and critique our work and also give us feedback. We were also tasked with creating very technical drawings. And so these, acted as our reference when we were on site and how to construct elements. And this is what it looked like all laid out on the site. So some things I learned, and these I think are applicable to all design builds. Some skills, that's me. So it could be painting, drilling. This is actually the first time I've actually used a drill, quite sad to say, but now because I did the design build, I do know how to use these elements. A chop saw that we had transported to the site. And so if you are hesitant about, getting to know and getting to experience, these maybe intimidating tools, this could be a great opportunity, but also different types of tools that you might have not otherwise gotten the chance to do. Collaboration, given the short time span that you have and given the amount of things that you must do, it's very important to collaborate. And that is something that you end up learning in a lot of cases here at, Daniels. You're quite used to just sitting on a desk, churning out some designs, going to the review, and then doing it all over again. In this case, it was quite eye-opening to see how collaborative architecture really can be. Another thing I learned was this, saying the customer is always right, but here in architecture, we translate it as client comes first. Just a funny story. If you can see this, canopy that we designed, these shading elements, we painted them orange. initially we had this whole idea of painting them blue so they contrast the paint that's on the ground, and I had this whole like logic, but then we showed it to the client. They were like, absolutely not, please just make it orange. And even though we had like so much thought that went into doing it blue, in the end we did do it orange. And that was just something that you don't necessarily expect, but that's honestly what the professional world is like. Real life constraints. This is the proposal that my group had initially, but it didn't go because there were a lot of considerations that we didn't take into account, like the fact that fabric, has like safety concerns, but also weight and how are we going to like put it, like hang it up there. Now, would I recommend this course? Honestly, with every design build, everyone has a different experience of what a design build is. I can tell you from this specific design build that I did, due to its site, there were a lot of experiences that, really changed my perspective on architecture and how it can influence the built environment. Like, because it was located in a parking lot, we would always have these people come by and just like engage with us in conversation. And you can truly see the impact that architecture can have on, the people that end up using these spaces. Here it was featured in the news. Now, some tips I have. The first is, don't go in with the expectation that your idea will get picked. The earlier you abandon this idea, the better you can contribute to the efforts of the group. There were a lot of iterations, like a bunch. You might think that the iterations you do in your design studios are a lot, but compared to this, there were much more. And that was because there were real life considerations that needed to be taken into account. The other thing is OSAP, and also being aware of commute and how long that takes. And with OSAP, I will just mention for those who are domestic students, given the fact that this is only 2 weeks and it's half a credit, it might not be eligible for OSAP because I think the requirement is that it's 4 weeks. So that's just something regarding being transparent about, the tuition and whether OSAP would subsidize part of that. And then for commutes, when we started the building stage, I was commuting 4 hours a day just because based on where I was living. And so that's just something one should consider. And finally, the tips I could give is to think of it more as a fun summer project and less as a course. If you think of it as a studio, you'll end up stressing yourself out since it's almost inevitable all the work you will do up until the last few days will go in the bin. And to think of it as an explorative exercise and not to attach yourself to any proposal or idea. This just goes to show like this is our final design, but this is how it started. And you can see how it's continuously transforming. And in the end, the project that got constructed was honestly a group project and not one person's idea. And this is just something funny that I thought I'd remark on. The last day of constructing this, we had a structural engineer visit the site and he shook the triangular elements and he was like, and they started shaking the entire canopy and he was like, I can't approve this. And so we had to immediately figure out a way and to ensure that it can actually like not, pose any harm. And so we had to attach these like bracing elements. And so it goes to show that even the final design could end up looking different from what you expected. But overall, it was a very fulfilling experience, especially seeing those that ended up using the projects that were built. And I think that is an overall theme of design builds. And with that, I conclude my presentation. If Reggie and Christiana could come on stage for a short Q&A.
So about the design build, how did you guys or your instructor kind of break up the task and who's going to do what? Like, what was the process in that?
Testing it. So the way he went about doing that, he honestly asked who wants to work on the stage, who wants to work on the shading canopies. And then that's how we decided. But a lot of people ended up changing groups just based on, their interests. So it's definitely not something that's like set in stone. Also, there are a lot of times like the instructor would say, okay, we're going to do this part now. Who wants to do this? Who wants to do that? And so you're always, collaborating with different group members. And so you really do get like a taste of everything, whether it's like building part of it, designing another part, organizing, maybe documents, so on and so forth.
For the trip to Athens, are there like any like other options to like travel, and like how available would that option be during like summers or just in general?
You mean like other summer abroad courses or like while in Athens? In general. Oh, I think there was an email sent out recently, and I think they said like Berlin, Morocco, Athens is happening, and I think there's one more. I'm not sure. What? Ghana. Yeah. I guess in terms of like in Athens, there was one weekend we thought maybe we'd go to an island, but we didn't really plan ahead, so we didn't go.
I feel like a lot of the studio courses are very like constricting with the requirements and the guidelines. So how would you say competitions or Athens or even the design build, how well do they like widen your scope for projects or design and where it can be implemented?
Hi. Okay. So I did my competition last year. That's like before, even after I submitted my portfolio, but that's for like applying for stream. But I feel like after, even as like after you already apply, it's still helpful for you if you're gonna like apply for your job, or like if you're gonna do like a research for fourth year. So you'll always build on your portfolio. And in terms of competition, I feel like sometimes it provides you with like a really interesting topic, and it's always related to the like current topic that everyone in the architecture industry are focusing on. So it's always a good practice that you join this competition and learning all those terms, or even just like you didn't like really get a award, but after that you go back to your competition file and you add on like new stuff or details to that. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think everything, like, regardless of what you're doing, everything kind of in some way, shape, or form leads to the next thing, or kind of shows up somewhere else. I think in Athens, it was about kind of like thinking about how to draw the city, and like, I mean, first of all, just being in Athens and seeing architecture through a different lens and in a different context is really interesting, and of course will like broaden like your knowledge and your understanding. But even the idea of like the palimpsest, which is something that Petros brought up in terms of composite drawing, so palimpsest being a very layered drawing, is sort of like a technique and a way of thinking about architecture and the city that I'm using like now in my design thesis. And yeah, I think also in the Studio Abroad course in Athens, the idea was how to kind of move away from the very basic kind of projection drawings, and think about like really designing the drawing, and how you communicate and represent. So I think in that way, it also broadens your ability to kind of observe and your ability to analyze and represent.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add one thing regarding the projects and also the representational techniques that we are taught here at Daniels. You'll find that it's very graphic. There are no technical dimensions. Even sometimes the structure gets negated completely to focus on more like conceptual ideas. And with the design build in particular, there is this huge emphasis on, will this work? How, like, will this get approved by a structural engineer? In fact, it was actually a very big shock to me to find out that we actually had to go through like websites like Home Depot and Rona to find if these materials are actually available. And so like all these, like, for example, wooden beams and these structural elements like the posts and whatnot, these were all gathered by, the group, the student group. And so it gives you like a very, like, I think honestly, I would describe it as a wake up call, because you become very, like, you get personal with the materials that you're using. And with the actual like physical form that gets constructed, rather than always thinking of like ideas and what would this look like. It's a very great way of translating your ideas.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think with design, but like even things as simple as like a 2x4 is not actually 2x4. It's like 1.5 by 3.5, and that's how you have to model it to understand how to construct it. And as simple as you mentioned in your presentation, like using a drill, like using table saws, like those are things that will help you not only in understanding construction, but even building like scaled models for a studio.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so I guess we'll just conclude this Q&A. And so for our last but not least segment, if we could please have Osaze and David present their presentations on internships. Good luck.
All right. Hi everyone. My name is Osaze. Just quick background about myself. I'm in third year, the design stream, with a minor in mathematics. And this presentation here is just about like my student internship that I had last summer, how I got it, what it was like, just like certain things like that. So firstly, we're gonna go with these important questions. So why should you take part in an internship? What students are able to do? What is the process for getting one? And then, like I said earlier, my personal experience. So firstly, why should you take part? At university, an internship is a great opportunity to get an understanding of what working in the industry is like. So essentially, like basically what Noor was saying for the design build, here in architecture school, we kind of work in a vacuum, like the type of things that we consider a lot more conceptual, like structural ideas, talking to clients, etc. It's a very like, it's an added dimension to design. So there are a lot more constraints. And then also this opens you up to like future employers, obviously getting yourself in the workforce, seeing what it's like, if you want to continue doing architecture, if you like working in this field or not. So what are students able to do? Shadowing architects and designers. Basically, this is just looking at their process. So you're essentially watching like what they do, kind of learning through that. You're not necessarily doing that much, but you can like take a lot of notes, and like from seeing how the practices run, like you would learn a lot from that. Secondly, learning professional standards. Like I said, a lot of things that we kind of ignore in school. So like the firm I worked at, one thing that was eye-opening to me was a lot of the like structural components. Like I knew they existed, but to actually implement them in what we were doing, like there was a lot more like technicality involved compared to what I've done in school. And then lastly, honing technical skills. Firms need to be like efficient in how they run. So you need to be like really good at the particular software that you're using. You can also learn new ones as well. So for example, in my experience, there's this software called like Bentley Systems. A lot of engineers use it as well. So like I've been saying, like the technicality of things is just on a whole other level. So what is the process of getting one, how to look for them? So I kind of put 3 things here, creating your CV or resume and a portfolio, networking, and also just putting yourself out there. They all kind of go hand in hand. And for putting yourself out there, I'll start with that first. Like in many ways, you have to look for it yourself. You know, like things aren't gonna be handed to you. Like you have to really like ask questions. Don't be afraid to email like different design firms that you like their work, whose work you like. You know, don't be afraid to go to networking events. You know, these different organizations that may come to Daniels and speak. Don't be afraid to like put yourself out there and really ask those questions, because you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Rip Kobe. Yeah, that also goes into the networking. As you do that, you know, you get to meet people and it becomes more personal. So obviously that helps you in terms of like snagging an opportunity. And then lastly, like people may like you, but you still need to have the credentials. So develop a good resume, develop your portfolio. Obviously, the stuff you're doing in school, competitions, etc. All of that are like really important. And they talked about it before with the streams, but the kind of similar things apply. Like be very selective in what you pick. So for example, if you know this one firm focuses on like residential buildings, right? And you have like a plethora of residential ones and then a plethora of institutional, you might want to like emphasize your residential stuff in your portfolio more. So for my personal experience, I just want to say, like, I'm an international student. I'm from Barbados. So my internship was back there. And the process is pretty much the same in terms of getting one. But the firm was Tony Brooks Architects. They done a lot of like institutional and commercial work back home. But they also do residential projects, which is one that I got to work on. Like primarily, I also did some like specification stuff for another big project that was happening in the firm. So I have a few screenshots for Rhino. I couldn't find like the actual drawing files. They're not on my flash drive. They were on like the principals. So this here is just an example of the survey drawing. A lot more technical than the type of stuff we'd work with. Like you see different dimensions and whatnot. And then going on to like 3D modeling. This is like a in progress model from the internship. Basically, I took the survey drawings and my task for this was to just like recreate the pre-existing structure, because we wanted to, like the client wanted to like extend it a bit essentially. So we had to model what was already there and then kind of look at the structures there, the vernacular of the building, etc. And then I have here a sectional perspective screenshot of kind of like what the proposed thing was. Now, I'm not going to go into all the detail about some of the moves that were made, but essentially, like there were some structural problems with the roof if we were to continue certain things. That's why we changed that. Also, like if I go back to this here, yeah, you can see like those arches. You kind of had to bring that forward to keep the character of the building. So things like that. But then also going back to the whole technical thing, like budget is also really important. So with the client's budget, we couldn't extend beyond more than like what was originally planned, because like basically for cost, they measure in, what is it? It's like dollars per square foot or something. So if you extend over a certain amount, that goes beyond the budget, you know, it gets really messy, stuff like that. And yeah, thank you for listening to me. Hope you had a good time.
My name is David. I'm a fourth year design stream student, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about internships and what they are, how to get one, etc. So what's an internship? I cannot stress this enough. An internship is a paid short-term placement that gives students a hands-on opportunity to work in their desired field. There's a lot of professors at this school that do not pay their interns. Don't go to them. So my experience, I was working 6 months at Guthrie Muscovich Architects. The firm focused on mid and high density housing developments. I worked on several projects that were in various stages of their design processes. Here's one example of some of the work that we did out in Markham, huge golf course, Angus Glen. We made a ton of different residential designs. Pictured below is one of them. Higher end houses. And then Mississauga, there's a big development called Brightwater. Tons of firms are working on it, KPMB, super cool, et cetera. And so we worked on the townhouses. And so I got the chance to do all the floor plans, the RCPs, all that technical fun stuff. What can you expect at an architecture internship? Well, the typical duties of an intern, as Osaze was talking about, you kind of shadow architects, but you work with them, on preliminary design phases of a project if you're lucky. But mainly you're going to be doing drafting. You're going to be doing working and construction drawings, as well as doing administrative work, which is exhilarating. Preliminary design, what does that entail? That's consultations with prospective or confirmed clients, iterative modeling, and creating concept diagrams. Again, what Osaze was doing. Working and construction drawings, that's your elevations, your sections, and your plans, as well as your RCP, so your reflected ceiling plans, structural detailing, all that fun stuff. And then administrative work, that's if you're going to be working in Ontario, you might be doing something called an OBC matrices, which is the most complex form on the planet, which details the building insane. Like you have to talk about every square foot in the building. It's like a 20-page Excel sheet. So you guys might be unfortunate enough to have to do those, which I did a few of those. You do change orders and you standardize the firm's work to fit code regulations because architects don't follow code. They make you fix their work to fit it. Now, your experience is going to differ a lot depending on several factors. First, the size of your firm, the type of work your firm produces, the managerial structure of your firm, your personal set of skills, and most importantly, your personal outlook, right? So it's what do you take from the job? Size of your firm. If you're working at a large firm, you're probably going to be doing the same thing for 3 months. It's going to suck. If you work at a small firm, you're going to have your hands in like several different projects. It's going to be more fun. You're going to learn a lot more. So apply to the smaller firms if you guys want to apply this year. That's my advice. How can you get an internship? Well, for first-time applicants, your portfolio has to demonstrate an understanding of creating working drawings. Again, you have to emphasize that you know how to do plans and sections and elevations, the basics, because that's what you're going to be doing. Your cover letters and portfolio should showcase a diverse set of talents because chances are you don't have a lot of work, right? You guys are going to just have finished 201. So show that you know how to draw, show that you know how to model, show that you paint, photography, anything, show that you're creative. And most importantly, get feedback on your resume and your portfolio because chances are it's going to be pretty bad. And so people are going to tell you, oh, it's not clear. This is what you should do to fix it. So very important. Talk to your professors about that. Disclaimer, good internships are hard to come by and even harder to get. You have to know how to network and you have to create connections because chances are, doesn't matter how good you are, someone whose dad knows the principal is going to get the job no matter how bad they are. So make sure to befriend your professors and ask them if they know who's hiring or if they're hiring, etc. Comparative analysis, internships versus academia. One sec. Okay. Depending on where you work, your internship experience may be more or less similar to your experience as a student at Daniels. What's that mean? Well, there are some firms in Toronto that do not do any built work. It's all theoretical stuff. It's all submitting for like competitions, essentially. So, but at the end of the day, the workplace and school ask the same questions. What concepts drive a project? What's the scale of the intervention? And what is the function of the design space, right? These are very, very important questions that the work you do at your firm are going to ask and the work that you do at school are going to ask, but completely different answers, right? What concepts drive a project in school? They're all theoretical. You get to work and they're going to be more like, well, the sunlight, the soil type, the code, the scale of intervention. Daniels loves to do these large scale interventions. That's not how the world works. You're going to be working on the tiniest of scales, a plot of like 30 by 30. What is the function of the design space? Daniels, especially with 201 and 200, they love making useless spaces. Real firms, they care about the function of the space. So keep that in mind. The environment, the overall atmosphere of the workplace compared to school is pretty similar. Everyone gets along. Everyone's suffering together. But where it differs is in school, there's a lot of competition among students, especially now because you guys are all going to be competing to get into streams. There's going to be some beef, I'm sure. You might be like, oh, let me see your portfolio. Oh, and like, oh, this sucks, whatever. At work, everyone's just like one common objective. Actually, that's a lie. Everyone's trying to one up the other person to get a better salary, but that's besides the point. Not as an intern. It's very chill as an intern. But what is the mindset one needs to excel in the workplace compared to in school? Same exact mindset. Put your head down, keep working, get it done. Learning opportunities. So what role does the academic institution play in my architectural education? Well, a lot of people, I'm like rereading this after 2 weeks of making it. Let's see. I don't know what I was talking about here. We'll skip that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, David. Question for you. The small firms, how do you know about them? Like, if they're so small, how do you know they exist in the first place?
So, like I said, connections are quintessential. We all know the big firms, KPMG, B&H, Perkins and Will. They're not going to hire you. You go to your professors, you go to your parents, you go to your neighbors. You go, oh, do you know any architects? You know who's hiring? They're going to go, oh yeah, I have a buddy who's the janitor at this firm. Guess how I got my last job? I went to my dad and I was like, none of these places are hiring me. He says, well, our accountant is also the accountant of another firm. Let me put in a word for you. And guess what? I got the job. It's about your connections, right? And so recently I got into contact with one of my old professors, who some of you may have had, Jennifer Kudlatz, maybe not, 201 professor. And so she's got me lined up for a few places, and it's all about your connections. But the small firms, they don't advertise that they're hiring. You got to seek them out through any means necessary.
Sorry, follow-up question. Would it be
Yeah.
rude to cold call them, like email them?
I'm not gonna lie. No, you have to like cold email them. I don't know what that means, but yeah, don't cold call them. Maybe, I don't know if you're ballsy, but I wouldn't. Just because chances are that you're gonna call them, they're gonna go, hey, you're gonna be like, are you guys hiring? No, and then hang up. Because they're not like ever hiring, right? Like it's literally someone goes to them and says, I know this kid, he's really fucking good. And then they go, okay, we'll look at him. So there you go.
Thank you.
So about the length of your internships, I can't remember how long Osase said his was, but you said yours was 6 months. So was that like you took time off from school? How did you balance that time management, part-time? Like what were the details in that? And do you think it like you should sacrifice to take a step out of school and get that internship and take that opportunity? Or you think you should always just try to narrow it down to just a summer thing and try to make it work with your academic?
So great question. Started in May, ended late September. So it was just about to be 6 months. Why did I stay all September? Because I got really cocky and thought, oh, I can do architecture school as well as doing an internship. Guess what? You can't, especially if you have certain professors, right, who demand a lot from you. So I went, like at the end of my work term, it was going to end in August. And I went to my principal and I was like, oh, like I can work part-time. These are my hours. He said, oh, that's great. I start doing that. I come back like 3 weeks later and I go, look, I've not slept in I don't know how many days. And so we talked and I was like, I don't want to sacrifice the firm's work and make you guys hate me just to keep a job. So I'm going to resign. but they were all architecture students too. So they were like, at first they were like, why the hell are you working while in school? And it was, yeah, I got cocky, don't do that. So yes, I sacrificed school time and it was hard to bounce back.
Hello? Okay. What was the question? Mine was like just over 2 months. It was pretty small. Because I applied late, but like, yeah. So I would say the longer ones you learn more, but at the same time, like time management is key. So for a smaller one, like I think there's also value to that. And your question was like really long, to be honest. I like missed half of it. So yeah.
Do you have advice for someone that doesn't have a whole lot of connections in the field and doesn't know any architects? Like, I feel like cold email, yes, like me, like cold emailing hasn't been successful. So I don't know, any more strategies?
I would say like putting yourself in like various organizations, like RAIC, Royal Architects Institute of Canada. If that's even what it is, I probably got it wrong. But oh, really? Okay, nice. So yeah, things like that. The one for like your province, the one for Ontario, because they're like, the subset ones. Doing that. Even at Daniels, like every now and then, like they have different events where architects come in, like they present their work, like they have various conferences. Like try to put yourself in those spaces. And if you do that, you start talking to people, you hear certain things, like, the stars will align. So I would say that. Okay, yeah, maybe, but like maybe it's better than not at all. So it's better to like, actually like put yourself out there for things like that. There are a plethora of organizations. You just have to like look hard enough. Like if you're willing to actually look, like he was saying, like, look for the small firms because, they're not really like putting themselves out there. They're like diamonds in the rough. You have to like actively look. It's not just gonna just pop to you like that.
So, yeah, I remember when I was applying, I sent like 50 applications. I heard back from a few of them and they were all like, works good. We don't want you because you don't have experience. So genuinely, just find the small firms and do research in opportunities at Daniels as well. That's gonna look good. Yeah.
Wait. So like I'm in second year right now and I've talked to a couple instructors and like couple like other architects and like the Gersling um lecture one time. I talked to a couple of them and yeah, a big thing is they're just like, oh, you're in second year, you have to wait. But like if I wait, I'm just not gonna have any experience later on and it's gonna look worse. So like other than looking for the small
Connections.
firms, how do you like get a shot at it even if you're just in second year?
Can't stress this enough. This is like the hardest field to find a job in. And then when you get a job, they don't pay very well. But like I said, you got to be a really good student. And then your professors are going to go, oh, I know a guy. I'm telling you, it is that. And there's like no magic way around it. I know a lot of my friends. So I got a job out of my second year, again, through connections. All of like my friends, like they actually were doing unpaid work in high school. And then those same firms took them back paid summer of after their second year. I don't suggest doing unpaid, especially at this age, but that's an option.
Don't like know your worth in that regard.
But there are firms that would love to take advantage of that. So if you're really desperate, that's an option, but I don't suggest it because it's humiliating. I wouldn't do it.
In terms of after like doing such like practical, like hands-on work, like what you've like shown there with like you know, like those technical CAD drawings. After like doing that in the summer and coming back to like here at Daniels, where like the work is generally like more theoretical. How has that like changed your approach to like your work and just like your outlook on like the study itself?
That's that's a good question. I will say it definitely influenced me because I remember from my studio last year, like the housing one for design. Like I remember like just looking at things differently. Like there were certain concepts and like at some points in the design phase, some people like their concepts were strong, you know, they were really keen on what they wanted to do, but they couldn't actually put things together, if that makes sense. A lot of the stuff that's practical is not just about designing, but how to make your design a reality. You know, it's one thing to have like this super cool building, but like if it can't be built, like what's the point, you know? So it definitely informs you in your decisions in terms of like design is something that is both creative, beautiful, but also like equally practical. If not equally practical, maybe even more practical. Because at the end of the day, like this is a service industry. It's not necessarily about like your creative work, but at the end of the day, you're designing for a client. If they want a house a certain way, if they want an office a certain way, that is primary. Obviously, you have to be creative in that regard too, but you have to keep those things into account. So I think it like made me emphasize those things more. And like even in my drawings, like they're a lot more like I guess the vibe, for lack of a better term, it's a lot more like professional and technical. Like I should have put some in the slide, honestly, that's my fault. But I figured since it's academic work, you know, it wasn't necessarily important. But I would say that it definitely does inform you. Like you think of things differently, like another dimension to like your level of design.
You get kind of angry for sure. Coming back from my internship, going into 361, designing the house, which some of you guys will be doing if you get into design stream. Start working on your portfolios, by the way. And I was like, oh, great, I've been designing houses all summer. No, they want very theoretical, and you get very upset because you're like, this is not how the world works. Okay, the world isn't all butterflies and rainbows. There's such a thing as gravity in the real world. So you get a little upset, but you also have to learn to take advantage of the fact that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to be in school. You're never going to be able to think for yourself in the future. As Asaze was saying, your client is your master and you're just a consultant as an architect who knows how to draw. That's all you are. But you can make some beautiful stuff. But until you make a name for yourself, which you might not ever, you don't have any say in your design.
And then also like just to add on to that, like I think there's a lot more beauty in designing something that is functional as well. You know, you can have like this super extravagant pavilion, but to have something more subtle, but like it works efficiently. Plus you had those other design things, like those like typical, you know, concepts that are outside the box that we tend to do in academia. If you're able to marry those two, like I think you're a better designer for it than if you just focus on one.
Okay, end of answering this question. It's been too long. So next question, or we're done? Oh, one more question. Okay.
We're gonna cut it here.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, that concludes our student experience panel event. Thank you all for coming. We hope that these presentations were insightful, and of course, huge thank you to our panelists for all their hard work and efforts. A huge thank you to the mentorship team and all they went through to organize this event, AALD, and the registrar. Yeah, we hope to see you at our upcoming events. And with that, have a good night.